As stated in Le Goff's medieval civilization, during the Middle Ages women were looked down upon. However, they are an important part of the economy. Women played a big role as producers of textiles and clothing. As we see in this scene, women are
Excuse me, I'd like
buying
to
and
see that
selling
one.
cloth to be used to
No,
make
This one?
clothing.
no, the other one, the next one. Thank you.
This is the latest fashion among the ladies.
Fine, it's quiet. It'll last a life.
You were saying?
Nearly 600 years after St. Francis died, we see the role of women starts to change. The daughter is given some of the same freedoms as the male children. As shown in this scene, she is outside playing with the boys instead of being kept in the house to learn domestic skills. In this scene, the father is showing off the education of all of his children, including his daughter. This shows that not only were women allowed to be educated beyond learning domestic skills, but also that the father is proud to have an intelligent daughter.
Despite the great length of time between the death of St. Francis and the birth of Leopardi, some things remain the same. The role of the firstborn male child is still to inherit his father's wealth, titles, increase his family's social status, and take his father's place when his father dies. In this scene, this concept is briefly discussed between St. Francis and his father. His father tells him that despite the cost of acquiring armor and horses, it is worth it because if he performs well, he can win his family a coat of arms, indicating an increase in social standing. However, this does not end up happening. His father is quite distressed when his son pursues a path quite different than what he had envisioned for him. This is paralleled in Leopardi. Leopardi's father wanted Leopardi to take his place and maintain the family manor. However, like St. Francis, this is not what Leopardi envisions for himself. He wants to pursue the life of a great writer. This concept is closely tied to another idea in Le Goff's medieval civilization, that of cyclical time versus linear time. The cycle of feudal inheritance is closely linked to cyclical time in that the same position is always filled. When the old lord dies, his son steps up to take his position. No matter how much time has passed, there is always a lord to rule. The people may have changed, but it is ultimately the continuation of a cycle. The concept of linear time is more modern. Both St. Francis and Leopardi are progressive men, and that their lives can be seen as a move towards linear time. Instead of following in the footsteps of their fathers, both have decided to break the cycle and live lives different than those of their ancestors.
In this scene in Francesco, St. Francis is writing the Franciscan rule, the code of laws that those who are in the Franciscan order must abide by. One of those rules is that no one inside the order may own books. One of the reasons this was done was because in the Middle Ages, books were an expensive and rare commodity. To own one would be to own great wealth, something which goes against the monk's vows of poverty. However, by the time of Leopardi, this would change greatly. While by no means inexpensive, books became much more available widespread due to the invention of the printing press. Instead of being forced to copy down a book by hand, a publisher could use a printing press to produce multiple copies of a book in a single day. This is well illustrated by this scene in Leopardi. His family's library most likely contains hundreds of texts. In the Middle Ages, this many books owned by a single family would be unheard of. Due to the increase in availability of books, it became easier to spread information and educate others. The spread of knowledge would prompt a move away from the dogma of the church and a push towards secular thinking, causing a great change in society.
Part of this push towards secular thinking can be seen the final scene of Leopardi. Here, overlooking Mount Vesuvius, he recites his poem, Wild Broom. The central message of this poem is to call arms that man should unite in a great struggle against nature. In some sense, Leopardi must see man as outside of nature and raised above it. This contrasts greatly with the religious thinking of St. Francis and others at this time. Expressing the views and common thinking of the Middle Ages, St. Francis sees all of nature, including man, to be God's dominion that he has created. In the Canticle of the Creatures, St. Francis addresses natural forces as brother and sister, seeing a familial bond between God's creations. This religious line of thinking is directly opposite to that of Leopardi, in that man and nature are separate things that are in constant struggle with each other.
We can see that some of society's beliefs have changed when it comes to the role of women, the availability and access to books, the way society views time, and a push to secular thinking. However, some of society's opinions have stayed the same when it came to the role of the firstborn child. This is demonstrative of how society's thoughts and beliefs change and or stay the same throughout time as a society continues to develop.